Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Stuart Cohen from IGI Cyber Labs. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. We're just waiting for some of your colleagues to log in. But thank you very much for attending today's session. Today is around a live demonstration and peer Q&A call. We are lucky enough to have Eric Pinto with us from SOCSoter, talking a little bit about the SOC services that MSPs need, how MSPs can get supported by a SOC provider like SOCSoter, and as it relates to the end users and to the clients, what are some of the things that they get from an MSP that has SOC capabilities along with the traditional IT or cyber hygiene activities they've been providing in the past. So we'll get to those in a couple of minutes, just giving a couple of people a chance to log in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So with that, why don't we move on to the first slide. Just to remind everybody, the whole idea, this is an opportunity to ask your questions. We got a couple of questions that got submitted in advance. Feel free to put any questions you want in the chat box or in the question box. We'll do our best to get to all of those questions. As always, this is recorded. There will be a recording that will be available on YouTube shortly after this. So you can send anybody the rebroadcast as well. There's also various things on our YouTube channel from other things that we've done in the past. Before we get started, just a couple of things. We have upcoming events. These are what we refer to as kind of public service announcements, right? We want to talk about what's going on in the industry. How do we make people smarter? From an SMB leadership standpoint, whether you're a CEO, a president, a COO, or you're the IT manager at a small business, you focus on running your business. You focus on, what's the availability of your systems and what's the continuity of your systems if there's any issue that might take place. And you either count on your IT person or your MSP partner to make sure they do all those things for you, because you want to focus on running the business. So we talk through these sessions about various things you can do as a leader. In one case, the first one, we're fortunate to have Tim Coach with us and Ryan Cotier talking about assessments and what people can do with assessments to be better prepared for moving to a framework, better prepared for moving to your cyber hygiene program on the path to enterprise risk management. A variety of different things you can do with assessments, and we're fortunate enough to have two industry icons to kind of talk about those activities. The next one down in August is with Steve Mancini. Steve will be talking about some of the programs that CISA is providing to small businesses and how small businesses and our MSP partners can leverage a lot of those programs to help support organizations as they move forward, as they adopt, and as they grow. And then the last one is around Zero Trust. That's on the 18th, specifically talking about Zero Trust, what it means, what it doesn't mean, how continuous scanning is critically important. You'll hear things, and Eric will talk about, always on and how continuous scanning fits into some of the things that people are doing to get to Zero Trust. Great opportunity to ask your questions, hear from a couple of experts specifically on those topics. So those are really designed to be, educational opportunities. They're not an opportunity to sell a product. They're really to provide, once again, the ability to get your questions asked, to hear what's on the mind of others like you on the issues they face. Today's session is slightly different. Today is really that. It is a demonstration of the Nodeware product, to ask any questions you have, to maybe listen to what some of your peers might have as questions. So you can listen, watch, and observe. And then we're going to talk specifically about SOC capabilities and what's needed from a SOC standpoint. And we're fortunate enough to have Eric Pinto from SOCSoter with us today to talk specifically about not only what MSPs need, but how they support MSPs. And if you're an end user or client, what are some things you ought to be looking for? So with that, before we get started, with the questions, why don't we move to a short demonstration of Nodeware? But as always, if you have any questions, please put them in and we will interrupt the conversation to make this as collaborative as possible.
Great. So confirm, Stuart, you can see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So hello, everyone. My name is Frank Raimondi. I'm the Vice President for Channel Development at IGI. And I'm want to just walk through a little bit about Nodeware and what it's all about. To start with, you can see the screen here. This is kind of the end result of the behind the scenes of what's being done, and I wanted to give the high level of how we're getting to this point. So we provide network sensors, virtual sensors that are can work on VMware, vSphere, and there's a Windows sensor. So it doesn't have to be a specific device. It can be any device on that network, and you have the appropriate sensor that you can load onto that. With that sensor, it's going out and identifying and fingerprinting and vulnerability scoring or scanning for every IP address that it can find, and it's going to basically find everything. So you're thinking about IP cameras that could pose some risk. You have VoIP phones, printers, of course, servers and firewalls and routers and notebooks and desktop computers, etc. So anything on this network is going to be sort of identified. As you know, obviously the change to remote working has increased and is held on. We also have agents for your notebooks and Macintosh devices and some other Linux endpoints. So with those agents, you can be sure that every asset that you have, every computer, whether it's on the network or not, is being monitored and evaluated on a daily basis. The way our sensors and agents work, that every minute there are tracking to or pulsing the network to see what assets are online, which then produces alerts if it finds if a new asset has come onto the network. And it also then once a day is scanning every asset for its vulnerability. So compared to other vulnerability engines that are available, that are more scheduled, weekend, midnight, once a month, once maybe every couple months, we are doing this continuously, normal business hours, just again, continuous scanning of every asset. So what that gets you then is this as an MSP, this is your view of the platform. It's multi-tenant, so we can come in and look at our multiple customers. You can see their individual scores. So if you're just coming in and doing a quick glance, you can see what the scoring is. That there's a couple criticals here. This one seems to be pretty good shape. There's a few criticals there. But if we go in, we can get the individual customer data, and you can see how many assets are online right now. There's 13 online, and you can see the details of each one. You can see the green eyeball here is showing whether they're online at the moment or not, which ones are more vulnerable. And you have the IP address and the MAC address, and then also a name that you can give it. But we also do this fingerprinting, so we know at a quick glance, this is a Sophos firewall versus a Debian server versus anything else, including external sites. So you can also use Nodeware for specific URLs that you want to manage and keep an eye on for their vulnerabilities. So this is actually I didn't want to click on that one. Let me go back here because that one's in good shape. But we want to look at one of these ones that's a little less in good shape. Here's an 820 on a scale of 999, and here you can see the individual. This is one particular asset. It's got a high vulnerability. It's got a modified, which means that we've identified it. We've done some tweaking on it to make sure that to just to modify that particular scan. But the medium level vulnerabilities, a couple low, and then there's some other information as well. But in here we can click in and go further. Here you can see a description of the issue. You can see the suggested solutions on how to fix this. You can see again some multiple deals, and then some other broader resources about CVEs and NIST government guidelines and materials. So we take it to this point and we allow you as the MSP to process it to your needs. This is a pretty singular focused tool that can integrate into other things, and we'll talk again with Eric about what kind of integration elements there are, or what one example of one. But here, another example. If you've done some work on this device during the day and you want to run a rescan, you just boom, click it, and its next cycle within that sensor it'll rescan the asset and you'll get an updated score. So that's, again, because we're real time, this is enabled and available. Just wanted to show on the reports, which is another valuable resource. On the reports, you can schedule certain reports. If you want one every Monday morning, maybe on Wednesday, whatever, you can do schedule the report. There are 7 different reports that are available for everywhere from a full network report, which has every level of detail that we just saw and all those vulnerabilities and the info sites that'll be included in this. If you want to just look at your external scans that you're doing, but most folks are going to want to look at a 2-page executive summary. If I run this report, it'll just take a few seconds here. You'll see that a new report has been available. It's ready for download. I click on that. I go secure download from there. Report's available. I can open it up and see what I want to provide. So again, you might be going to your customer in the afternoon and you can say, hey, last month we were at 800, now we're at 877 because we've done these 3 things. Our next month's plan is to do these other things, which will take care of these 2 criticals and a couple more highs. And so at least you're showing a progress, and you can rebrand this if you want, put your own logo on this. We have HTML or PDF pages that are provided. There's no other branding from us anywhere on here, so you can take that to your customer, provide them that information. We also have a full set of JSON REST APIs, so RESTful APIs that you can utilize and drive if you wanted to pull data into specific tools that you created. You can see there's all kinds of data here. Unfortunately, this is all Greek to me, but if you know what you know, this makes a lot of sense. I was with the customer this morning and they were like, oh, that's great. That's just what we need. So I know it's the right stuff. I just don't know what it is. So I think that's pretty much it. There is a full support page that you can go and look for information on the intro, deployment, other materials and articles, etc., that you could use to do this. But what we've heard from multiple MSPs is that typically a new rollout, a new customer deployment can be anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, and another 20 to 30 minutes you've got a lot of the data that you'll need to be able to look at the information. So I think that's it, Stuart. If you want to take it back, I can, or Nora, you can unselect me, and we'll go back to.
So we do have a couple of questions. One came in specifically around the FTC safeguard for the auto dealerships that have come out, and can we work with the dealerships to make them compliant? The answer is yes. We are happy to work with automobile dealerships, RV dealerships, boat dealerships that all might be having to get to the FTC safeguard. We provide a portion of that solution that they need. Some people say it's anywhere from 4 to 6 of the 18 to 16 checkboxes that are required. And we also have partners like SOCSoter, Security Studio, and other compliance organizations that can come together and build the solution for what an MSP needs or what an auto dealership needs to make that happen. And if you want to contact us at nodeware.com or at our contact information, that's at the end of the session, we're happy to get you more information on that. But we've got a lot of different ways we're working with MSPs that are currently supporting auto dealerships, as well as auto dealerships that are looking to get to the FTC safeguard compliance, and we will match them up with MSPs, or we'll provide, an a la carte service, if you will, with what SOCSoter and ourselves, Security Studio, and a number of different compliance organizations and compliance partners have the ability to offer. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any other questions about that, please let us know that as well. The other, we also got a question about continuous scanning. Yes, we have a patent that we were awarded a patent that talks about how we provide normal business hour scanning 7/24 and immediate alerts associated with that, separate and distinct from what a lot of our competitors have done, or what was kind of the industry norm, as recently as probably 12 to 24 months ago, where a Sunday night scan, a monthly scan, a quarterly scan was enough. Now people are requiring, because of the compliance requirements coming at them, like the safeguard one that the prior person asked about, or others, continuous scanning during normal business hours has been very critical, especially with all of the frequency of cyber attacks coming their way. So a couple of different things on that. Hope that answered your question. Happy to follow up on either one of those as well. The other thing I will say is if you're from an MSP, we have a lot of MSPs that are running Nodeware for continuous scanning during normal business hours, and have been running their historical vulnerability management tools either at Sunday nights or monthly or quarterly, and they're now upcharging their clients to get continuous scanning, immediate alerts, because the clients want to pay, a little bit more money to know that they're getting scans on an ongoing basis, on an anytime basis, to be able to get that kind of information, because they don't want to know, oh, that vulnerability's been on for 6 days, or that vulnerability's been on for 29 days, and we just didn't get a chance to catch it. So we can talk more about that later. We can show you more specifically in the demo, but I wanted to answer those two questions. Let me introduce Eric. We are fortunate enough to have Eric with us, one of our key partners from SOCSoter, specifically a SOC provider assisting and supporting MSPs, and then, through the MSPs downstream to the end users. Eric, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with us today. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about kind of your observations and what you see and what you guys are doing, and maybe some, if I was an MSP and I was looking for a SOC provider, what I should ask you.
Hey, Stuart, it's great to see you and Frank, and thank you for having me here. One thing, I'll just chime in on what you were just saying. I think that what you guys are bringing to the table here in terms of the real-time awareness is it removes this idea of I think the MSPs were really tired of chasing problems, and you say a day or a week, but if you're doing scanning quarterly, semi-annually, you may be 6 months behind the problem, right? And then you do your routine scan, you do your semi-annual scan, and now you've got page after page after page of problems that you have to go out and somehow solve, for or with the end client. It's daunting, and it ends up being something where you resolve a portion of them, but really can't tackle them all. So I think this idea of going to a real-time, real-world scan that's producing results daily removes that issue for a lot of our partners, at least.
Yeah.
And just to tell you about SOCSoter, so we are a SOC SIM compliance-focused organization. We only work with the channel, the MSP channel specifically. One of our differentiators in the space is really how deeply we look into the network traffic. So as a SIM and as a network threat hunting platform, we're deeply looking at the packet activity and the device-to-device activity, whether they be corporate-owned devices, employee-owned devices, IoT. It doesn't really matter for us. If it's a device on the network, we're scanning and monitoring it every day. And then we pair that service with a deep run into into cloud services and integrations where we're partnered in with not only with Nodeware, but we're from an integration perspective, we're looking at SentinelOne data, Sophos data, Cisco, M365, Azure and AWS, and others. It really just gives us a really clear view of what's going on in that customer environment, all the way down to the endpoint.
Oh, that's great insights. So maybe if you were coaching, if you were an MSP thinking about getting SOC capabilities or offering SOC capabilities as an extension of what you've done in the past with your clients, what are some things you ought to be looking for?
Well, I think there's a couple different drivers towards the SOC. I think the MSP, if the MSP is looking towards 24/7 security awareness, right? They may not have that infrastructure in house. Most MSPs are IT generalists, right? So they're very good at a wide spectrum of capability and service. But if they're typically not architected to track things from a security perspective all day, all night, right? So I think that we bring that expertise to the table, as well as a wealth of help and guidance, right? So if someone says, hey, well, we're not quite sure about our settings here or our setup or which ports should be available, things like that, we can give that guidance. Or certainly once we're up and running and scanning the network, we're able to come back and say, hey, you've got some real challenges here that you may not have been aware of. And those challenges extend not only to network settings, but all the way through to vulnerabilities. So on the MSP side, I think it's that we're able to help them in areas that maybe they may not be built to help themselves. But we're getting more interest, direct interest, I think, from the end customer side, right? The end customer is really pushing or moving the needle, right? They're pushing things forward, where the end customer is now coming to their provider and saying, hey, I heard from a peer in the industry, or I heard, or I read in a review that, hey, I should be doing certain things. Do you have these capabilities on hand? And the MSP that either does or they don't, right? And if they don't, some of them may say, hey, well, you're all set with the services we've got deployed, and quite frankly, that may not be true, right? So the end customer has been driving these conversations, whether it be compliance, cyber liability insurance, their own liabilities and want to just relieve their own liabilities, or just having parity with their peers in their industry or vertical.
So Eric, maybe along those lines, maybe, again, you guys offer a lot of range of services. How can an MSP kind of pick and choose, or is it all you can eat, or is there a la carte, or how, what do they start with something? They typically start with something, then they add a little bit as they go, or maybe describe how you offer there.
Obviously, all of the above. I think one of our other differentiators is the fact that we're not so specific to say, hey, you need to rip and replace everything that you've been doing and start over again, or you've bought a slate of services and now they're null and void because you need to pull in this new bank of services. We really try to meet our partners where they are. But we also, there are times on calls where we push back too, right? So we may get on a call with a partner that says, hey, we just want to look at endpoints. And then we start talking to them a little bit more about risk. We start talking to them a little bit more about where the threats may lie. And in doing so, we exposed other challenges that they weren't quite maybe ready to address. But in terms of how you get in the door, vulnerability scanning has been a great way to get in the door, especially if you're prospecting into net new territory, because you can go in and if there's an incumbent provider, whether that be an MSP, whether that be an internal resource, whether that be their cousin that's just manning the network for them, coming in with a vulnerability assessment, it's a great way to introduce yourself and maybe expose some concerns. And then once you've exposed those concerns, it becomes much easier to then dig deeper and start forging that manager, that ongoing relationship with them.
Yeah, and actually that's a great point, Eric. We've got a number of current MSPs that just with Nodeware that are we offer a 7-day free trial for the end user, and they're kind of using that as as you said, as a prospecting tool to start with, right? Because one, it kind of gives them a perspective on the realistic number of devices on the network that they would be responsible for, right? Often the customer might say, oh, we've got 50 employees and 70 devices. Well, it doesn't take long to realize that they really probably have more like 100 to 150 assets when you include all the things that are on the network that they just didn't think would be needed to be included in a management tool or a management service. So one is they provide, they get an accurate count, they get a realistic view of how bad that network is or how good it might be. In just, so it kind of opens up an SOW opportunity for, it could be a break fix or a replacement deal in addition to the managed services and the vulnerability play. So, it's a great door opener for prospecting. And/or prospecting for an existing customer that needs some more services, right? Again, kind of to your point, you don't know what you don't know,
Right.
and you don't know how bad your network might be. We saw a study today that as a new vulnerability comes out and is announced, the hackers are on it, right? They're going to go and find that wherever they can in an environment, and if the MSP or the customer is not, if they're waiting a month or two to get their next vulnerability report, they're toast, right? I mean, they're gonna get hit.
And you bring up a really good point. I think that when if I look at our partner base and just sort of measure the conversations that I typically have with them, most of our partners, our MSP partners, are laser focused on the individuals and the devices that are directly under their management, right? So that's the servers, the desktops and laptops, right? And they're really good at putting agents on those devices, RMM agents and other agents on those devices, so that they can have maximum awareness over the devices that, again, they control. But what typically happens is someone then introduces a third-party device or an employee-owned device into the network, and then that becomes a conduit, for compromise, right? That device may only get introduced into the network once or twice a week when, John, the sales guy, brings his tablet, into the office with him, to do his reports, whatever he has to do. And that device then starts, trying to then, gain access to other things because it's already vulnerable.
Right.
By having the always on awareness, soon as that device is introduced into the network, it's immediately then evaluated for risk. It's evaluated for concern.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether the partner, the MSP, was aware of that device or not. The system is aware of it because it sees it on the network.
Yeah.
Again, the real key here is the fact that these devices might only come on once or twice a month, right? Or once or twice a week. So, you end up trying to play whack-a-mole, trying to figure out, where my threats are, because you don't have a real way to chase it down, right? And if you're just doing a scan on Sunday, guess what, Stuart, you missed it. You're not going to see it, right? So, this gives them the opportunity to see things that they otherwise wouldn't see.
Well, and that there's one extra extension to that, which is really kind of, you got to think about it a little bit, but when you do, it's like, oh, duh. So with one of our tools, one of the Windows sensor, let's say an executive at a healthcare company, right, is going to go home or is working remote or is working over the weekend, right? We can add a Windows sensor in addition to an agent. We can add a Windows sensor onto his device, so he can all of a sudden now be managing his home network, right? Because I mean, I've done my own home network, and you forget about the 40 assets that you think about between the Nest thermostat and the cameras and the smart TVs, and you add them on. But those are generally going to be fairly safe. But you also have the printer that he's brought home that's a network device that could be hacked in. You have the kids, or maybe the executive's Xbox, right, or other device, a gaming system that gets plugged into the network. And again, it's another open port that potentially could be, be hacked. So, you wouldn't necessarily do that for every employee, but for certain employees that have access to sensitive data, it's another vulnerability point that, as an MSP, you can add that as a protection to your customers and all their employees. So there's different ways of testing, but all of this is, this access and this vulnerabilities are ever present and changing, right? CVEs are coming out in the dozens every day. So we take care of that for you, so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, on the SOC side, you brought up printers, right? The multifunction printer, copier, scanner systems, they all have some degree of storage, right? And if you're in the mortgage industry, the insurance industry, an accountant, and you're moving files through those systems, how long does that data reside on that device, right? No one knows, right? It's an OS that's locked, so a partner typically can't access it to know. They can maybe have some regime to clear it or clean it once a week or once a month or however often, but likely they're not even doing that, right? So you now have a device that potentially has tons of sensitive data depending on vertical that's sitting on it, and no one's looking at it for compromise. So if I think of what we're doing at SOCSoter, scanning all of their network devices, we're looking at the multifunction devices, the printers, the IP cameras, and everything else on the network, along with the desktop servers and laptops.
Great. Yeah, that's perfect.
Hey, I'm curious, Eric, we talk a lot about that, the increased compliance requirements heading, towards the SMB marketplace, and the frequency of attacks coming at them are the two things that are kind of driving not only them to do something, but it's also driving us to connect our MSP partners to those end users. I mean, we spend a lot of time doing matchmaking, right? Here's somebody who can provide you local assistance, local support, and get you what you need, not only with Nodeware and vulnerability management and immediate alerting, but above and beyond that. Are you guys seeing, more things coming your way due to compliance, or more things do you think coming your way because of the frequency of attacks, or are they also blended together? You can't tell them apart.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive, right? So on the compliance side, if I had said compliance if I was honest, or if MSPs were honest in a group, and we said the word compliance in 2015 or 2016, we would only sort of think about HIPAA. In fact, that today, when I say compliance, that's sort of the first response. But on the end customer level, they're being driven by so many different compliance requirements, whether it be PCI or financial. If they're in the financial sector, there's a number of different requirements there. Anything that revolves around PII, there's certain concerns and responsibilities there as well. And then we've done a ton of business in the past 2 years with CMMC in the outgoing NIST 800-171. So I mean, these are all huge drivers on the compliance end. But then if you just talk about, and you mentioned the rise of attack or risk or the cost of those attacks, right? And I think where that's come in is not necessarily in the fact that you could be compromised, because I think that everyone sort of takes that for granted and says, yeah, sure, I can be compromised, but I'm not a target. But when they're trying to go out and get something like cyber liability insurance, the insurers are now looking at it and saying, hey, we're being tasked to pay out more. This has to stop. So they're now putting in language in the contracts. We've seen it over the past year and a half, where the language has just ramped up. And I think the inclusion of words like any and all assets, which is something fairly new, again, in the last 2 years, words like any and all assets must be monitored. I think that's a game changer. And I think that it's something that is somewhat overlooked by a lot of partners, but again, the insurers aren't overlooking it. So you put yourself in a situation where you sort of authorize everything and say, hey, yeah, they're good, and approve the policy, and then down the road, if something happens, now you're at risk of the finger pointing. Well, you said that you had these capabilities. Clearly, those capabilities aren't in play. Clearly there hasn't even been a vulnerability scan in 5 months. And then maybe we won't pay out. And I don't know that that's something that partners are even today even prepared for.
No, clearly not. No, there's a lot to learn there.
So cyber insurance, interesting topic, fast moving topic. Can you elaborate a little bit on the cyber liability that the clients are getting, working with some MSPs separate from the cyber insurance the client might need themselves, separate from, where the MSPs are on that. For instance, we have a partnership with SOCSoter, and we're providing the output of the Nodeware content into the Security Studio assessment, which then drives the questionnaire for SOCSoter to be able to provide downstream client liability for their MSPs. You want to comment a little bit about kind of where you see that whole cyber liability space and cyber insurance space, and how you can help the MSPs be better prepared?
Yeah, in fact, I'll first say kudos to you for putting something like that together through your partnerships. I think that's potentially very helpful for managed service providers. That managed service providers have found a lot of difficulty in getting cyber liability insurance in the last year. Where they may have had a policy in 2018, 2019, now they're finding that those policies aren't available to them, specifically to managed service providers, because of the varied amount of risks that they have in their own network, and then as that network extends to a customer network, right? So getting themselves insured has become somewhat of a challenge. That being said, on the client side, the demands are really now swirling around just awareness. Awareness over assets on network, I think, is the biggest piece. Making sure that you've got some level of vulnerability checking in place. I don't know that they've gone to the extent of saying that it has to be real time or always on, but certainly at a cadence that is weekly or more. And then, so those are two areas where as an end customer, you have to certainly level up to even be able to get insurance. I think that we go a step further, and then we start talking about incident response, because it's not only should you be compromised, okay, great, anyone can be compromised. What happens next? Do you have a plan in place? Do you even have an incident response plan? And if so, how do you carry that out in real time? Because most of the regulations and requirements now are wanting some level of an answer within like 72 hours of compromise. Most partners, and certainly end customers, would find themselves throwing their hands in the air and going, I don't even know where to start. So we've built in incident response into our platform, where as soon as there's compromise discovered, whether it's discovered by us, discovered by the end customer, discovered by anyone, as soon as that happens, we're jumping into action, pulling reports, doing correlation across various systems, making sure that we've got the vulnerability scans, checking the vulnerability scans to see where the risks might lie there. We're participating in that process quite actively, and that's a big missing piece in most organizations' security plans.
It's one of the reasons why, and Frank can elaborate a little bit more. It's one of the reasons why not only did we do the API integrations with Security Studio and downstream with SOCSoter, but why we recently announced the program with Gradient, right? The ability to tie into Gradient's billing system, so the Nodeware output goes into their system that gets connected with all the PSAs and to their ticketing systems, allows for kind of a fully integration of the MSPs and takes some of the productivity issues or effectiveness or efficiency issues they've had to deal with in the past. So, Frank, maybe you want to elaborate on that for a second.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit more simpler than described, but basically what the Gradient integration is allowing is, if again, because we're multi-tenant and we're licensing the MSP, the Nodeware product, and you're splitting it up or using it as per customer. One customer might have 33, another one might have 88, another one could have 122. And so what the grading application is allowing you to allocate the cost that you're paying in the license to those particular customers. So you at least have a better understanding of your your allocation of your cost to the right customer, so you can manage your profit per customer. The integration into the PSA, they have 8 current and a couple more coming soon, allows kind of the similar data of usage into the PSA tool, so that again, that can match up to the customer counts and information. We're actually working on a number of other similar types of integrations that allow the MSP just to manage the business and integrate it in with other tools that they're doing. But again, what Eric and SOCSoter is doing is really kind of the best variety of different integrations, because it's it's graduated, it's providing key value that the MSP just either doesn't want to invest into, because it's a specialty, right? It's Eric, you guys are sharing the specialties that you have with and enabling the MSP to look a lot bigger, to provide a lot bigger services than they could on their own. So it's a account management, account control, but with a lot more services available to protect their environment.
Yeah, that's right. But kudos to you guys for recognizing the MSP ecosystem and making sure that you've reached out to certain partners in terms of integrations. I think that if any organization is looking to work in the MSP space, you have to understand the landscape, right? So we've spent a lot of time looking at solutions like endpoint solutions, where we are fairly agnostic, right? We know that our partners are going to have relationships with Sophos or Cylance or SentinelOne, right? So we've made sure that we've brought those technologies, the ability to monitor those technologies via API, right into our platform. We make it really easy for them, so they don't have to go out and rip and replace what they're doing on every other desktop just to bring in a SOCSoter end customer. Our integration strategy obviously leads into RMM and PSA. We're working on bettering our two-way integrations into those platforms as well, and really making sure that we're deeply entrenched in the MSP ecosystem in a way that we can best support our partners.
Well, that interesting, kind of referencing back to one of the upcoming webinar series that Stuart called out before, and he'll reference again, is we're doing this series with Gradient kind of as a lead body in there, but the value is not pitching our product and not Gradient service, but it's looking at elements that can really improve the MSP's business, right? How do you mature? If you're here, how do you get to there? And in the cyber world, it's like there are different levels of cyber hygiene that you're providing as a service, and we want to get you to the next step, because your customers are going to need it, and if they're not getting it from you, they're going to get it from somebody else. So we'd rather you got a current customer, let's keep that customer with you, and to add extra value and stickiness back to what you do. And we want to look at multiple ways that can be done.
Maybe we've got a couple more minutes before we wrap up, but Eric, maybe you could elaborate a little bit on, if you're an MSP and you're looking to grow, because there's this large number of SMBs coming the way of needing local assistance and local support from an MSP. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit on some of the things that you guys are doing to make the MSP more efficient, more effective, the ability to scale and take on more clients without becoming, overwhelmed or unproductive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of us are facing some level of a hiring challenge, right? So whether you're an established MSP with 20, 50, 100 employees, or you're just starting out and you've got 2 to 5 employees, it's a challenge making sure that you've got resources on staff that can handle, sort of this wide array of challenges, especially if you add in compliance. So I think being able to backfill those capacities is one of our biggest strengths. So, we allow the MSP, again, whether they're, if they're 2 employees and they don't even have, overnight support, we're able to help there. Or if they're 50, 80 employees and they've got a fully staffed NOC, we're able to help. From a support perspective, we'll pick up pick up the baton wherever they hand off. So, if they need that real time, late night, deep dive support, we're there for them. If they just need a quick phone call, and they can take it from there, at 2 in the morning or on a Saturday afternoon, we're fine with that. But we want to make sure that we're empowering partners with capability that they otherwise wouldn't have, or expertise that they otherwise wouldn't have. And that's where we get the biggest kudos from our partner base. The biggest thank you is to say, hey, we couldn't have approached that in client environment, without you. Or we've had this in client, and this is actually one of the best ones, I think, in terms of wins. We've had this in client for 10 years. We've been supporting them to the best of our ability, and the landscape has shifted, right? We've been supporting them. We thought we were doing a good job, and the requirements are much higher than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, right? Yeah. So they bring us in. We work with them. We work with the end client. Maybe we do an assessment, whatever's required. But at the end of that, we come in with a pretty fair price point. So at the end of that, they're able to go back to the end client and say, hey, maybe we need to make some changes contractually, in terms of monthly recurring revenues. But it's not a huge jump. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's a manageable amount in terms of increase per month to get to where they need to get to, or maybe not even an increase at all, depending.
So what I want to do is I want to wrap this up. Let me mention a couple things. Once I said we have these upcoming sessions, I'll talk about these for a second, and then Eric, I'll come back to you for kind of any closing remarks you have, any trade shows or events you're going to be at that people can get a chance to meet you at. If you want to let us know those as well, that would be great. Frank, any kind of closing remarks from your standpoint after that? And then we'll wrap this up a couple minutes early and probably give people a couple minutes back. As I mentioned, we're doing this session with Gradient. This is the first one around the art of the assessment and helping the MSP ecosystem be more effective and more efficient. And what are some of the questions and issues around assessments and doing assessments on a broad basis, going deep on those, as well as doing the lightweight assessments and how to get started on particular industry verticals. So we'll have that conversation with Tim Coach and with Ryan on the 2nd. Steve Mancini, a friend of Nodeware, who's been very helpful with helping us with what are the programs CISA provides to help small businesses. As an example, they provide a free vulnerability scan once a month that they provide for small businesses, and we've got a lot of people take advantage of that and then come to us and say, boy, that was great to get that snapshot, but I can't wait 29 days before I find out what new vulnerabilities are on my system. So CISA's done a great job of creating some opportunities for us for continuous scanning for normal business hour feeds. And Steve will be on to talk about the different programs they have in their cyber essentials program at CISA. And then, as I said, zero trust is a hot topic in the Fortune 1000. And we've had a white paper that we distributed with Ed Amorosa, the former global CISO at AT&T. If you're an MSP and you want to co-brand that for your own outreach, for your own prospects, for your own interest, we're happy to work with MSPs specifically with that. But we're going to have a conversation on the 18th talking a little bit more about what does that mean and what does zero trust mean for an MSP? What does it mean for small business and small business leaders? So feel free to attend any of those. You can sign up on our website. You can sign up on our LinkedIn page. That information's out there today. And we look forward, once again, submit your questions. If you can't be on in advance, we'll make sure we get them asked during the broadcast. and then you can watch the recording to get any of your answers if you can't be with us live. With that, I'll turn it back over to Eric, just some kind of closing thoughts and where you're going to be and where people can catch up with you.
Hey, thank you. One of the thoughts, if you get anything out of this call, we've thrown around, I think, a number of different players in the space. Comprehensive cybersecurity doesn't have to be expensive or confusing to deploy anymore. It shouldn't be a scary topic. If you're a smaller group and you haven't really embraced some of the technologies that are available, I'd say, hey, reach out. I'm glad to have a conversation with you guys. It costs you nothing. I think my contact information is right there. So feel free to reach out. We'll set up a call and just talk about it. I'd love to meet with partners in the space and understand what the challenges are that they're facing, either themselves or for their end customers, the questions that they have, the knowledge gaps that need to be explored. I'm glad to do that. And again, it costs you nothing to have the conversation. We will be out and about. I'm glad that the world is getting back together, right? So we'll be at ChannelCon in Chicago next week. I believe, Frank, you'll be there as well.
Yep.
That's CompTIA event in Chicago. We'll be at the CRN Channel Company Exchange event in Denver. That's August 21st. And then if we can look forward into September, we'll be at the DattoCon event in DC on September the 10th. So tons of opportunity to get out and meet and greet. And if you see me out, glad to meet you and have a conversation.
Eric, thanks so much for being on today. Thanks for your partnership and our strategic relationship we have with SOCSoter. And we really we're fortunate that you see the world the way we do, and it's all about helping the MSPs be stronger, be safer, support more of their customers, and then help them kind of grow and continue to meet the needs of the ongoing SMBs that are going to need more and more assistance from more and more MSPs, and the great opportunity that you're doing to increase their value proposition. So thank you so much for that and for everything that you guys do. Frank, some closing thoughts?
Yeah, I would just reiterate that we kind of talked about it in different ways, but I think if you're not comfortable with cybersecurity services, that again, what we provide with Nodeware is a great starting point. As we talked about, kind of use it as a prospecting tool. Look at it as discovering your client before you really engage with them. Sometimes you might not want to bring on a customer because you find out how bad their environment is, but at least you found it out beforehand. So, but Nodeware is a great provider for that. Standalone or as an integration element within the SOCSoter services. So that's really helpful. Where we'll be in the next few weeks, again, mentioned ChannelCon in Chicago next week. The following week we'll be at the Channel Pro SMB event in Charlotte, North Carolina. In September, we've got another Channel Pro event in Dulles, Virginia, Northern Virginia, and then we'll be kind of partnering with Eric and team at the DattoCon. So yeah, we'll be out and about. Again, just take a look at the website, nodeware.com, nodeware.com/partners, if you want to look at what how to sign up and start getting involved with us. Look forward to seeing you online or on the road.
Perfect. Well, thank you both for today. For any MSP partners that are out there, we also have promotional offerings in place for ASCII members and for seven-figure MSP members. So if you participate in either one of those organizations, please look to them for some promotional offers that they have made exclusively to their members. And with that, I want to thank you for your time. Participate with us on LinkedIn. Share your comments, share your thoughts, ask your questions. We can collaborate together to work on this all together. As we've talked about, right, we're all about building the ecosystem and making it stronger and safer and smarter and able to scale to the large number of SMBs that we think are going to need assistance with the increase in compliance requirements and the frequency of cyber attacks. So thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to having you on one of our sessions over the next few weeks. And everybody have a great weekend and safe travels. Thanks so much for joining us today. Have a great afternoon.
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
guys.